the Martha and Melissa sheep and wool version of Morning Song at the John C. Campbell Folk School. And we are teaching a class this week called Sing Till the Work's All Done. And we are spinning and dyeing and weaving and singing and telling stories. So I'm going to start with a song that has sheep in it. We'll just say that. And this song comes from the Isle of Man, and it's called Searching for Lambs. Oh, there are the sheep. As I roved out one May morning, betides, I met a maid from home did stray, just as the sun did rise. What makes you rise so soon, my dear? Your journey to pursue. Your pretty little feet, they tread so neat, strike off the morning dew. I'm going to feed my father's flocks, his young and tender lambs, that over hill and over dale are waiting for their dams. Oh stay, you handsome love, and don't wander off from me. And I have lost the words of this verse, but we'll just keep on going. The sun, it shone so gloriously, the air was ever so fine, I'd rather rest on my true love's breast than any other where. For thou art mine and I am thine, no man shall uncomfort me. We'll join our hands in wedded bands, and married we shall be. As I roved out one May morning betides, I met a maid from home did stray, just as the sun did rise.
I'll trust that guy. All right, my turn. I'm going to tell a little story. I've been threatening our class all week that as soon as they knew all the parts that I would tell them the story, and then we were so busy yesterday afternoon we didn't have time to do it. So you're just going to see what you have more questions about, so if there's a part you don't understand. Well, this has to do with two women that started off as babies. I'm just letting you think about that for a second. And they were like so many of us, they lived near each other. And because they lived near each other, they were best friends. And because they're best friends, they told each other things all the time. They argued about things, they agreed about things, they disagreed about things. And at the start, it was probably who had the nicest mother, whose boyfriend was cutest. And time went on, and time went on, and time went on. And they were very fortunate to grow old and still live near each other. And one day, they were doing what they did most of the time at this point in their relationship. Marion, could you move over a little? I'm sorry, I can just see your face there. We do have a few friends here. At this time in their relationship, they spent their time arguing about everything. This is true in my family. I don't know if it's true in yours, where you've been nice to each other for long enough. So these two got to arguing, and what they were arguing most about was whose husband was the greater fool. And as they argued about it, they decided the only way to settle the score was to have a competition. Now, this is non-competitive school, but this was one time there was a competition. They gave each other a week, and after a week, they were going to judge whose husband was the greatest fool. The first one went home, and they lived in a little log house. If you come here to the folk school, you can see that they've moved their log house right into the heart of campus here, just one side of the log cabin museum. they were living there, and the wife went in, and the first thing she did was she covered all the windows, and then she went to the fireplace, even though it was July, and she built a big fire. Then she went out to the garden, she picked every bit of herb that she knew of, and she put them all in a pot, and she cooked them. At the end of the day, when her husband came in, very tired and very ready to talk about the day, and she said, "Oh, you don't look good. Here, stick out your tongue." And she pulled out his tongue. Oh, you better get into bed. So she put him in the bed, and she gave him this bitter drink. And you know, before long, he wasn't feeling very well. Meanwhile, back at the other house, that woman went into her house, and she started working. And it's very much like what we've been doing this week. She was picking, and carting. And when her old man came in, there she was. There's another one. And he looked at what she was doing. He'd seen her do it many times before. And he said, "Darling, what you doing?" "Oh, I'm carding this wool. She makes roll after roll after roll. They're stacking up there. And he says, "Can I ask you a question? What is it you're carding?" "Oh, well, I got this fleece all the way from Australia. And it has special qualities. It's so soft you can't feel it. That's one thing. But they say if your husband's been lying to you, he can't see it." He says, "Oh, what beautiful color. Oh, can I just pet it? Can I just feel it?" And she's going, Meanwhile, back at the other house, this guy now has had copious amounts of whatever the bitter brew was, and he really isn't feeling good. And by the end of the day, his wife, well, let's just say, she alerted their friends. Meanwhile, back at the other house, now she's done all the carting, and she has one of those high wheels, walking wheels, muckle wheels, the many names, wool wheels, and there she is spinning. And when her husband comes in, she's rearing back, and then she's stopping, and then she's winding it on, and she went right through that pile. And her husband stopped her, and he felt the thread. "Oh, this is the best you've ever done." Meanwhile, back at the other house, that wife had now talked her husband into laying himself out on this table she had. And the friends had come, and they were saying all those things that you always say. "You know, he looked great last week. What happened?" Meanwhile, back at the other house, she's now done all her spinning, and she's getting ready to set up the loom. So, of course, she called her husband. I told you I was going to put Peter in this story. She called her husband. She's like, say, could you just help me? I'm really in a hurry." "Okay, what is it?" "Well, when I poke these little thread ends through, you pull them through to the other side." "Yeah, right." So the two of them are there. And when he left, she was there rearing back on all those threads and winding it on which beam? The back beam. Front beam, back beam. Meanwhile, back at the other house, the undertaker had been called. And he had a pencil behind his ear, and he had a little pad, and he was asking the poor sick feller some questions like, "Say, do you plan to wear a top hat in the box?" Meanwhile, back at the other house, now that loom is all warped, and she has it ready to go, and she's practicing all the treadles. Okay, she's got all her weave structure figured out. Going to be plain weave this time. Why not? And she's got this beautiful hand-spun weft. Yeah. And a big shuttle, and she whackety, and she's just weaving up a storm. Back at the other house, I don't know how they were able to do this, but the neighbors all came in, and they picked that poor old feller up, and they put him in the box. He decided not to wear a top hat. And they had candles around, and everybody was moaning and crying and carrying on. Meanwhile, back at the other house, now she's finished weaving. She just really put her time in and stuck with it. And she finished it in an amazing amount of time. And when her old man came in that day, she said, "Oh, good, I'm glad you're here. I've just finished weaving. Help me take this off." What do you call the fabric?
Oh.
Nothing? The web, the loom.
Sure, the web.
Help me take the fabric off the loom. So he grabbed hold of one end, she released the brake, tick, 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 tick. And she said, "Good, I'm glad you're here. I need to measure you." So she laid the fabric out, and she started, and when he went to bed that night, there she was with her big pair of scissors, cut, 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 and sew, 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 sew. Meanwhile, at the other house, it was just the same. Back at the other house, now when the old man comes in, she has all the parts sewed together. And she said, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Let's see what we can do about this suit I just made you. Take those overalls off." So he wiggles out of his shoes and he takes his overalls off. And she says, "Right, put that on," and buttons it up the front, and then puts the jacket on, and she brushes it, and she straightens his collar, and she says, "Perfect fit. Good, we've got a funeral to go to." And she runs and gets his hat, and they start out the door. Now, meanwhile, at the other house, it's really true. He's in the box, and now the lid's on. And they've carried him to the burying yard, and they've put the box on sawhorses. And everybody's standing around, and they just, "I just don't know what happened. I mean, last week, he looked good. He was working." There was a whole crowd of people. When they happened to look over and see this wife coming with her husband, and he's not got much on. And they were so appalled at what they were seeing, they averted their eyes. I would have done the same. And they got right up in with the crowd around the coffin. And there was some little boy standing there, probably just like Henry, my little grandson, who said, "Granny, Granny, he doesn't have any clothes on!" And at that point, the man inside the box sat up to see what everybody was hollering about. He pushed back the lid and he sat up, and everybody thought it was the second coming. Pew, pew, pew. They were all gone. They were all gone, except for those two women. And the one says to the other, "I got him here with nothing on but his top hat and his shoes." And the other said, "He was going to let me put him in the ground." So here's the thing. You have a few minutes to vote on which one you consider the greatest fool. You just make the checks out to the John C. Campbell Folk School, and right down the bottom you write your vote, and we'll take a tally right before supper. And that's the story of the two old women's bet. Was it true? Yes, it's true. Every bit is true.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a song called "Poverty, Poverty Knock." And it's about working in the weaving mills in England and doing piecework, and it has a chorus which some of us in the room know how to sing already. So y'all can join me on that. And I'll start with the chorus. Poverty, poverty, knock, me loom it is saying all day. Poverty, poverty, knock, gaff, keeping one eye on the oh Lord, here we go again.
Just start again.
Poverty, poverty, knock, me loom it is saying all day. Poverty, poverty, knock, gaffers too stingy to pay. Poverty, poverty, knock, keeping one eye on the clock. Still I know I can guttle when I hear me shuttle go. Poverty, poverty, knock. Up every morning at 5, I wonder how we stay alive. Tired and yawning all in the dark morning, it's back to the dirty old drive. Oh, but we're going to be late. Gaffer has stood at the gate. We're out of pocket, our wages he'll dock it. We'll have to find room on the slate. Poverty, poverty, knock, me loom it is saying all day. Poverty, poverty, knock, Gaffer's too stingy to pay. Poverty, poverty knock. Keeping one eye on the clock. Still I know I can guttle when I hear me shuttle go. Poverty, poverty knock. And when our wages he brings, we often is short of a string. Why we are fraction with Gaffer for snatching, we know to his brass he will cling. We've got to weather our yarn by dipping it into the tarn. It's wet and soggy, it makes us feel groggy, there's mice in that dirty old barn. Poverty, poverty knock, me loom it is saying all day. Poverty, poverty knock, Gaffer's too stingy to pay. Poverty, poverty knock, keeping one eye on the clock. Still I know I can guttle when I hear me shuttle go. Poverty, poverty knock. Oh God, but my poor head aches. I should have woven 3 strings. Threads they are breaking and my heart is aching. Oh God, how I wish I had wings. Sometimes a shuttle flies out, gives a poor woman a clout. There she lies bleeding, there's nobody heeding. Now who's gonna carry her out? Poverty, poverty knock, me loom it is saying all day. Poverty, poverty knock, Gaffer's too stingy to pay. Poverty, poverty knock, keeping one eye on the clock. Still I know I can guttle when I hear me shuttle go. Poverty, poverty knock. Turner should see to me loom, but he'd rather sit on his bum. He's much too busy a-courtin' our Lizzie, I can't get the fella to come. Lizzie, she's too easy led, I think that she takes him to bed. Look at her pinny, she used to be skinny, I think that it's time they were wed. Poverty, poverty knock, me loom it is saying all day. Poverty, poverty knock, Gaffer's too stingy to pay. Poverty, poverty knock, keeping one eye on the clock. Still I know I can guttle when I hear me shuttle go. Poverty, poverty knock. Still I know I can guttle when I hear me shuttle go. Poverty, poverty knock.
She's back. She's back. So I'm just trying to think which way I want to go next. Greetings from the John C. Campbell Folk School. We want you to understand we're here. We're not shedding again. We're not shedding again. There's a lot of safety protocols. This is the first time our class has seen my face in many days. And I just want you to know that we're here. We're here, we're here, we're here. I also wanted to talk just a minute about where Melissa and I met each other. Right here at this school. Right here at this school. So many important things have happened to us through this school. So it's just been a great run for all of us. One person we have in common who's sitting right here is Norman Kennedy. So Norman is a great singer, spinner, weaver, storyteller, dyer, and we both connected with him and then sort of found each other a little more firmly. So it's, as I say, it's been great fun. I just sort of met Melissa and just kind of said, I think she's going to be my friend. Just kind of followed her from there. What else do I want you to know? That might be enough to know right now. So I'm going to show you my banjo. The other thing that's been really fun for me through these years is to see what my children have done. And my son is a resident artist in woodworking here and a banjo maker. And I know you're asking yourself, how many banjos do we need in this world? Well, apparently we need 3 more, probably going to be finished this week. This is Lindsay Lyden number 2. Actually, he told me the other day it was number 1. And because of me being me, it's got a sheep on it. Whoa. The other thing that's been fun is to have these little grandbuddies come to live beside us. So we have Jules and Henry. And Henry says to me all the time, "Granny, you love sheep." I said, "I do not." "Well, you talk about sheep all the time." And I said, "Well, I don't love them." "Granny, you do," right? So it's not about the sheep. What we've done during this week is we've traveled through the world, through time, through cultures, through depressing songs, through happy songs, through silly songs, through all the techniques. And they're all from the sheep. But do we love sheep? I don't know. I don't know. Sheep are interesting. It is true. And yes, I do tend to have a sheep on everything. This morning I don't have a sheep on my sweater. I have a spinning wheel. Okay, so it's related. But anyway. Right, everybody, what do you say? Well, it's very funny. After teaching here for a long time, people say, "I know they met you, Martha Owen." How do you know? Because they say sheep. So that's the way I talk about sheep, is I raise my voice. So we have a song that we started with. We've been singing outside in the herb garden and around the great big bowl. I don't know if that was a sorghum pot or something. And we only sung this one time, so I figure we ought to sing it again. And I hope this is in the right key. The chorus, we have a lot of chorus singers here. I can see them. From the wool, from the sheep, it was sheared, it was carded, it was spun, it was dyed, it was hung and sorted, wound into skeins until it could be knitted into clothes to keep us warm for the winter. Is that high enough? Can you sing there? We could go up here. From the wool, from the that's more better. Okay. So, we have a banjo lesson here. This is called a capo. Some people call it a clamp. And I'm tuned in the key of G. And it's where I use, like another person would use a guitar. The clamp hopefully puts it, without having to retune too much, I can hear a banjo joke bubbling up from the surface. Without having to retune too much, put it in the key I can sing more easily in. Let's try. From the wool, from the sheep, it was sheared, it was carded, it was spun, it was dyed, it was hung and sorted, wound into skeins until it could be knitted into clothes to keep us warm for the winter. Are a-bleatin' and the weather's getting warm. Coats are looking shaggy on the old sheep farm. Give 'em all a haircut, store the wool away. It's great for making mittens on a rainy day. From the wool, from the sheep, it was sheared, it was carded, it was spun, it was dyed, it was hung and sorted, wound into skeins until it could be knitted into the clothes to keep us warm for the winter. Berries from the bushes give us reds and blues. Onion skins give a browner hue. Boil 'em up in water, stir 'em all around for the fine rich colors that are nature found. From the wool, from the sheep, it was sheared, it was carded, it was spun, it was dyed, it was hung and sorted, wound into skeins until it could be knitted into clothes to keep us warm for the winter. Fall is a-comin' and the leaves are turning gold. Hillsides ablaze and the air turns cold. We look upon our mountains with wonder and with pride. It's time for making sweaters by the fireside. From the wool, from the sheep, it was sheared, it was carded, it was spun, it was dyed, it was hung and sorted, wound into skeins until it could be knitted into clothes to keep us warm for the winter. Musical interlude. The snow is a-fallen and the drifts like dunes the craziest fun song ever. From the wolf, from the sheep, it was sheared, it was parted, it was spun, it was dyed, it was hung and sorted, wound into skeins until it could be knitted into clothes to keep us warm for the wind. One more time, with gusto. From the wolf, from the sheep, it was sheared, it was parted, it was spun, it was dyed, it was hung and sorted, wound into skeins until it could be knitted into clothes to keep us warm for the winter. Got any last little tidbit?
It's wonderful to be back.
Woohoo.
It's also really fun to sing in this room. It's like
Yes.
playing an instrument.
It is. We come to you from the community room of the John C. Campbell Folk School. The community room was the first room built of the school. So they didn't have a place before this where they could gather large groups of people. And from that time, we have worked to wear out the floor. We've danced here, sung here, talked to each other here, and now you check in here. Anybody have any questions? No? Okay, good.
Thank you all so much for watching.